Hey guys, it's Ensei and welcome back to Draw With Me While I Talk, part 4, or number 4. Wow. Wait, no, number 3. Number 3. We're not at number 4 yet. So for this video, I will be reading one of my stories, and it's actually a different story from the one that I've been reading in the last 2 Draw With Me's. I'm working on the story for the game that I was working on in January, but didn't finish. I plan to rewrite most of the story because I reread what I wrote back in January and I was like, wow, okay. My writing has gotten a lot better since then, so I definitely wanted to rewrite it. And another new addition to this video, it won't be just me reading my story. We actually have a special guest reader this time, and he will be voicing one of the characters in this story. I am very excited to talk about this and for you guys to listen, but I will talk more about that when we get to it in this video. So I hope you're excited, but also please don't just skip to that part. Also, since I posted the last Draw With Me, I did get some positive feedback from that one, and a lot of you seem to be enjoying these types of videos, so that's great to know. But thank you for watching and listening to me just talk about stuff. Now, enough about my stories and games. We'll get back to that. I want to move on to the main topic of interest that I chose for this video, because I feel like I'm a little too scattered sometimes during my videos, so I decided to have a topic for today. And the topic that I chose is kindness. A while ago, like over a month ago, I witnessed something when I was just passing by that made me feel so happy to see, and helped reinforce that even though there are sad and tragic events that happen every day, there are also a lot of good events and actions that people do that also happen every day, even if you're not there to witness it. It's so uplifting to see people helping other people that they don't even know just because they can, helping not to expect anything in return except to be kind to another human or an animal. The courage to help others, not putting yourself at risk, but sacrificing something like your time and effort, and maybe even a little bit of your comfortableness. I don't think that's a word, but thinking about what I saw, it reminded me of the time I went to a concert. It was a big concert with thousands of people, and it was in New York, so yeah, a lot of people. This was also the first concert I'd ever been to, and on top of that, I went to the concert by myself, and waited in the line by myself. While I was waiting in line, I tried not to stand out too much since I was by myself, but at one point I heard someone say behind me, "Are you here by yourself?" And I was like, oh no, and just casually turned around to look and see that a girl just walked up to the person right behind me and had asked them that. That person said no, and I was just thinking, please don't ask me next. And thankfully she didn't, and she walked past me. But when I turned back around, I noticed that the lady in front of me also saw what just happened, and she looked at me, and then she looked at the girl that just asked the people behind me if they were here by themselves. After that, I noticed that she was keeping an eye on me and kept turning to look at me every few minutes or so. I don't remember how we started talking, but we did, and she said she was there with her daughter and her friend and their daughter, and she asked where I was from, and we just kept talking, and I slowly got merged in with their group. It was like she temporarily adopted me into her group, and I felt a little safer. I really just had to trust my intuition and gut feeling, but as a woman, or just for anyone being alone in general, but it's just hard to let your guard down completely especially when you're in an unfamiliar environment with strangers, even if they seem nice or that they have good intentions. But what I learned from that is that you should keep an open mind and try not to make your assumptions of someone the final conclusion about them. When I think back, she really was just trying to make me feel better and comfortable by, well, yeah, temporarily adopting me into her group. Maybe I looked more stressed than I thought I looked. Maybe it was obvious. So that's why she helps me. But I'm really happy that I ran into some very kind people. And like I said, don't sacrifice yourself. Don't put yourself at risk. If you want to help someone, don't put yourself at risk. Look out for your own safety first. But if someone needs help, it takes courage to help them. But also, the dark side of this is, like, if you go to a popular tourist destination or an airport or somewhere that is busy and has a lot of people, there are scammers and people who will act like they need help, and then when someone goes to help them, they try to get money from that person or be like, oh, this person pushed me. Like, if someone falls to the ground and then you go to help them, they might be just trying to get money from you, which is really scary and sad. There are people who resort to tactics like that these days and take advantage of people who just want to help. So that's why I say look out for yourselves first and assess the situation before you get involved. And that is my PSA for the day. And now on to the next topic, but it still has to do with our theme for today, which is kindness. So something about me is I used to complain all the time. All the time. This was a long time ago, but I also had someone close to me who would complain all the time. I would just listen and take it because I cared about them, but then after, I would go and complain to other people that I cared about. They were a good person, and I don't hold any grudges on them, but they were a good person and I liked them as a person. They were fine. Everyone has flaws, and this was just a specific flaw of theirs that had a big effect on me at the time. I would also think, as an excuse, I would think in my head that it's okay that I'm complaining because they were complaining to me all the time. So I would use that in my head as an excuse that it was okay for me to complain a lot. And I learned that that was wrong of me because you shouldn't use other people's faults as an excuse for you to do something bad. And by doing that, it had negative impacts on not only myself, but those around me. I used to have a very, very negative, constantly negative mindset. And I would usually complain about a lot of situations, but now and up until this moment, I don't complain nearly as much as I used to. And it's not because I'm suppressing myself or my emotions. I've just learned to become more positive and think more positive and see people in a more positive light. And now that's just who I am. It was not easy and it took a lot of time. Yeah, it definitely was not easy. Sometimes I fell back into my bad habits, like thinking really bad about a situation or like the world is against me, and just thinking things that didn't help my mind and my situation. But when that happens, I had to catch myself, or the people around me would call me out on it. I'm not saying that I've completely gotten rid of thinking negatively, but I do have more positive outlooks and a better way to handle bad things that happen or things that I'm not happy with. I have ways to think that help me think better about the situation. A big thing I've learned from reflecting on all of this is that it's all in the mind and how you think about things. The situations might not change, but the way that you view them and think about them and interact with them can. It really all starts with you and how you view what you're facing. I shifted from focusing on what I couldn't change to what I could change. I learned to think that I may have been frustrated with other people, but at the end of the day, I can't change them. Well, I don't like to say change, because I feel like that has a negative connotation. I mean more like grow. I can't change them, but I can change myself for the better. And I guess I should change the word change with grow. I could grow and improve myself for the better. I can grow and improve my mindset and the way I look at those situations that I still might not like to even to this day, because you will always face things that you aren't happy with. So when I face those situations to this day, it doesn't affect me nearly as much as it used to, because I'm a different person now. And the way I see those situations and interact with them are very, very different. And I feel a lot better even when I do have to face those situations. I've also learned that being happy is a skill, and thinking positively is a skill, based off of my own experience. And this is a good thing because it means anyone can learn it. It's not something that you're just born with. Well, yeah. It's not something that you're just born with. An important part of shifting and learning to develop a more positive mindset is kindness, being kind. And you see how smoothly I transitioned topics? I'm getting better. Being kind is not only good for people around you, but it's also very good for yourself. Being kind in the mind and heart will show through in your actions. What you do. What you do says a lot more than what you say. Even though I like to write and read, and I use words often, anyone can say anything. And if you don't back up what you say with what you do, then words don't mean very much. But anyways, being kind is not something you need to prove to anyone, because it's something you know for yourself. I used to be a pushover and very, very soft spoken. So I spoke really quietly. It was a bad habit when I was growing up. I didn't realize I thought I spoke normally, but a lot of people told me that they can't hear me. So after I graduated, I kept working on speaking louder. And a big part of that is confidence, probably. But I'm getting sidetracked. In grade school through high school, I would go along with whatever my peers wanted to do, or whatever I was told to do, even if I didn't want to do it or if I didn't agree. I would go along with it because I was scared of how I would come across. I didn't want to seem needy or rude or too high maintenance. So I would be nice. I would act nice. And being kind and being nice are two different things. To me, the word nice and being nice is for others and how others will view you. But being kind is for yourself first. And when you're kind towards yourself, you will naturally be kind to others. When you treat yourself kindly, you will naturally treat others kindly. This is because when you're kind to yourself, it also means that you are respecting yourself and you have self-respect. And I have to clarify, being kind and respecting yourself definitely does not mean being a pushover. Being a pushover or going along with what other people say or do all the time is being nice, in my opinion. It's caring about how others will perceive you while disrespecting your own beliefs and boundaries. You're putting others first and pretty much just pushing yourself down, which at the end of the day is benefiting others at a heavy cost on yourself. This is why having self-respect is also when you allow yourself to set boundaries and uphold them. I understand how difficult it is to say what you want or what you need sometimes, but at the end of the day, no one can actually read anyone's mind, and I think that most people just want to understand each other. When two people have conflicting boundaries and wants and needs, but you both want to get along with each other, then you both might gradually learn and consistently put in the effort to adjust to meet each other in the middle. If everyone in the world were kind and self-respecting, then they will also treat others the same way, hopefully, and there would only be kind people in this world. And that sounds really nice, but that is just not how the world works, and that's okay. That is just the reality. Again, try to shift from focusing on what you can't change to what you can change and work on. So kindness, self-respect, and self-compassion. Another bad habit I had growing up, and see, positivity is a skill that can be developed. Like I said, I was not a positive person. Well, on the outside, I seem positive. So I used to apologize so often. Say sorry all the time, and then most of the time after that, I would think, why did I apologize? I literally didn't need to, but it used to be my immediate reaction. And I realized that about myself. I think what also got me to realize was I kept saying it to this one person so often, and they always kept saying, like, why are you apologizing? You don't need to apologize. After that, I started replacing sorry with a different phrase, or just stopped myself when I was about to apologize when I didn't need to. I realized that saying sorry so often, I was demoralizing myself, and it hurt and lowered my self-esteem and my confidence. So when something happens that is out of my control, but I tried my best, I trained myself to say thank you. So I know that thank you can't be applied to everything, but in certain situations, if you did do something wrong, have the humility to step up and apologize. But if it's something that is out of your control, like if you're just the messenger, you can... Okay, I'll give an example so it makes more sense. An example is when someone has been waiting for you or for something and it takes longer than you both expect. You can say, thank you for waiting, or thank you for your patience. In this case, if you're just the messenger. So that means something out of your control that you couldn't rush. And you can also say, if you want to, say sorry, it would still work, but maybe like, sorry about the long wait, but thank you for waiting. That's kind of my customer service voice. This ends the conversation on a more positive note, and the person who was waiting will hopefully be understanding. And if they still get upset, maybe they're just having a bad day, but at least you tried your best, and it's not your fault that they're grumpy. I find that I get negative reactions more often when I put out a negative attitude, or facial expression, or body language. But when I smile, and it has to be genuine, a genuine smile, if the other person smiles back, then I accomplished my goal. People really do appreciate a good attitude and a genuine smile, and I think that's great. So when you're facing a situation that can be negative and it allows you to respond with a bad attitude, try to calm down and try to spread positivity, because it can go a long way. I always like to keep finding ways to improve certain aspects of myself and my life. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I just like learning. I just like learning, maybe. And I'm realizing that new things keep popping up, new things that I can work on and improve on. I'm not looking at it or myself from a lacking perspective, as if I don't think I'm good enough yet for this or that, but rather from a perspective that I do a certain thing this certain way, but there's also another way that I can do it differently that can help me improve on that. And I listened to videos on linguistics. I like to keep finding ways I can improve my video quality, and since talking is a big part of a lot of my videos, I thought that improving in that aspect would help not only my videos, but also my writing and my stories. It's kind of fun to find these little side tasks, maybe because it gives me something to do, and I like having things to do. Or maybe having something to do all the time can be a problem. I don't know, but I'm happy whether I'm doing something or not, but I find it fulfilling, I guess, to have something to do and to actually get things done. We're done with our main topic of interest in this video, which was kindness, and I hope a little bit of it sinks in with you. Moving on, this is the part where I read my story to you. Like I said at the start, this story is different from the one that I've been reading in my last two Draw With Me's. This story takes place in the same universe as my other story, but it's with different characters. This one is a fantasy, supernatural, romantic comedy. For now, the title of this story is called Catch Feelings, and I'm not going to explain why it's called that because it will maybe spoil the story. But yes, for now the title is Catch Feelings. I actually wrote a synopsis for this, or an overall plot, so I will read that to you guys so you have more of an understanding of the who, what, when, where, and why. What I wrote for the synopsis felt really cheesy at first, but after reading it so often, it's grown on me. I also mentioned how we have a special guest reader this time, who's going to help me voice my character, Kryn. That person who will voice Kryn is Jouska by night, or just Jouska. I'm not really sure how to explain what Jouska does, but he reads stories and scripts and acts them out, to put it very simply. Kind of like what I do here, but a little different. More ASMR-esque. I would say his focuses a lot more on immersion than mine, and are very, very high quality. I will leave his YouTube in the description if you want to go check out his work. He did an amazing job, and I'm very excited for you all to listen. And I'm sure you're very eager to listen, so I will talk more about him and my review after I read the story. I will read the synopsis now, and then I will jump right into the story. I hope you guys enjoy, and thank you so much for listening to everything and anything. Royal and Kryn are the two Spirit Reapers assigned to protect the humans at Spirit's Carnival from any possible threats. Lots of humans gathered together are a hotspot for certain types of spirits, creatures, and other beings. Whether they are there for nefarious reasons or not, Spirit Reapers are there to keep them in check. But not all danger starts with a grand entrance. Some stick to the shadows or blend in with the crowd, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Or not? Can two people who don't always get along come to an agreement for the sake of protecting these blissfully unaware humans? Or are their complicated feelings for each other the perfect distraction for some underlying plan? Contrasting with the sticky air that clings to my skin even through my cloak, the full moon settles high in the sky, away from this feeling, and illuminating even the darkest alleys of Spirit's Carnival. But to add to the unbearable humidity, Why am I always partnered with this guy? As if reading my thoughts, Kryn rams into the shoulder of a man, whether on purpose or not, which causes the man to almost fall to the ground, kicking up dirt in the process. After stumbling a few steps, the man recovers his balance and whips his head to shoot Kryn an intense glare. The heck is your problem? A quick look at the man and I can notice a slight imbalance in his soul. It seems like a soul fragment from a spirit he ran into has snuck itself into his soul and is overstaying its welcome. Right as I take my first step towards them, Kryn slowly brings up a hand without turning to look back at me, and I stop. The only reason he was walking ahead of me was because he has longer legs, not because he's in charge of this assignment or anything. But once again, with tongue-in-cheek, I let Kryn go through with some undiscussed plan of his while leaving me to react accordingly. The angry man is still staring daggers into Kryn's back while I observe their surroundings. A younger man, who I'm assuming is the angry man's friend, puts a hesitant hand on the latter's shoulder. Just ignore him. Let's go. The words have no effect on him as his fixation doesn't stray from Kryn's figure. I get no sense that Kryn is influencing the man's emotions with any of his own powers, but could he be using this opportunity to draw power from the negative energy for himself? My speculations are interrupted when Kryn slightly turns his head, and I catch a glimpse of the toothy smile spreading across his face.
Yeah. Listen to your friends, little human.
He draws out the last two words, and that's enough to push the hairpin trigger on the man as he lunges at Kryn. He tugs on the collar of Kryn's shirt, with his other fist balled so tightly that I fear he might wound himself. His friend stares at the disruption wide-eyed, as if he's not sure whether he should push Kryn or yank his friend away. A crowd starts to form around them, with some people giving them looks of curiosity or concern. I hear an old couple comment on Kryn's pointy ears, and how this is probably just some sort of show. Then the realization hits me that if I don't de-escalate this now, more people will get involved. I focus my attention back to the angry man and take a sharp inhale when I notice that the little fragment of imbalance in his soul has begun to spread inside of him. Then I remember the one who started this whole mess and a half in the first place. Come on, Kryn, how do you expect me to know what your plan is without telling me first? With all these humans around, I can't just vanish into another realm, let alone summon my scythe and expect no one to notice as I reap the soul fragment out of his body. Kryn's eyes shift to mine, to the crowd, and then back to mine, all within a couple of seconds. That's when the plan clicks into place. A distraction. Everyone in the area's attention is on Kryn. No one is paying attention to some girl with a cloak on in the back of the crowd on this, thankfully, quieter section of the carnival. Once I'm sure that no one is looking at me, I pull up my hood, close my eyes, and focus on a large amount of energy within me. The full moon heightens all types of energy, meaning that it also causes realms that are overlapping each other, like the human realm, parallel realms, and the soul realm, to be able to interact with each other more easily, like opening a gate between worlds. Since the soul realm is the most difficult for any beings to see, it requires even more energy that Kryn knows I have. The air around me starts to cool, as if disappearing altogether, and I escape the hot humidity of the carnival. The sight that greets me is that of the more muted version of the human realm, which contrasts with the bright souls of humans, creatures, and all sorts of beings, each one having their own unique hue and purity about them. Among the sea of souls, two in particular stand out. They're both a bit fainter, darker than the rest. One is like a small, dark cloud that muddles the center of a regular, bright soul, making the angry man's soul a blighted soul. The other soul is also muddled, as if it were smoke covering up the sun. But unlike the other one, this one has its entire light dimmed and tinted. Kryn's soul. The more I observe it and its luminosity, I realize that his soul has gotten a lot brighter than it was the first time we met. As long as he doesn't have some sudden dark descent, his soul should hopefully keep improving. Wait, stop thinking about Kryn. I still have to clean up the blemish in the human soul before it spreads any further. I squeeze between the crowd, trying my best to avoid passing through them as much as I can. Though my presence won't hurt them, it can still feel strange. I nearly avoided fully phasing through a woman moving to get a better view and arrive at the center of the crowd. The blight in the angry man's soul has spread to be about the size of a fist, so it's still going to take some agile maneuvering on my part if I want to get rid of it without reaping his entire soul in the process. If the blight is bigger, then it would be easier to aim for, but that would come with its own set of problems. With my right hand, I call forth my scythe, and I feel the reverberation of its power even before it appears in my hand. I angle the blade low to the ground and move to position myself a few steps away from the man's soul. The man lets go of Kryn's collar and starts yelling something, but the sound of his voice and the carnival are too muffled for me to make out, as if I'm hearing their world with a cup on my ears. Despite that, I hear Kryn's next words crystal clear, and though he shouldn't be able to see me in much detail, his red eyes somehow find mine.
Be a dear and try not to aim too low, will you?
Huh? I choke on air from that very out-of-the-blue comment. This guy is just trying to make things worse. Since no one else can see me, Kryn's words sound as if they are meant for the angry man. The misunderstanding causes the darkness to spread in the human's soul as he yells again and brings up a fist, pulling back his arm. But before he can make another move, I put both hands on my scythe and swing. The blade slashes through the human soul and right into the blight. I feel little resistance as the blade catches the darkened light and carries it out. Once out of the soul, the blight dissipates like smoke in the night. The man clutches his chest, right on the spot where his soul was corrupted, though he doesn't know about that, of course, as his friend rushes to his side before his knees hit the ground.
Just get him a Besley's pop and he'll be fine.
The two humans exchange looks of confusion and then turn up to face Kryn with furrowed brows and wrinkled noses. What? No, he needs a doctor.
Trust me, human. I work here.
Kryn looks down his nose at them while tapping the pin on the front of his coat, which signifies him as a working guard at Spirit's Carnival. I let out a long, long sigh. Not helping our reputation, Kryn. Speaking of needing a doctor, my senses shift from clear to foggy as my energy starts to fade, and I phase in and out of the soul realm. I squint up at the sky, and even through the everlasting veil of the realms, the moonlight shines down, bright and omnipotent, as if threatening to expose my presence. I should find a covert spot to shift back into the human realm quickly, because spawning out of thin air is totally normal for humans. Most of the crowd has already lost interest, so I can't rely on that as a distraction any longer. A ghost of a feeling that almost causes me to flinch brushes through my hand, but when I look to find that it's just Kryn, I relax. He tilts his head towards the side of a building and continues to that area. I take that as my signal to do the same and start heading over, but not before I dispel my scythe, which disappears when I wave it off. Why did I have my scythe again? Oh, right. I look back at where the two humans were and see them staggering in the opposite direction. I really need to shift back if I can't even remember what happened 2 minutes ago. When I catch up to Kryn, I stop to stand beside him as we both just face the wall. I step closer to the wall and hover my hand over its surface. Is there something special about this wall, or... A shadow falls over me, and I whirl around only to once again come face to face with Kryn. With his hood up, he stands close to me, while while still leaving enough space for me to move away if I want to. But I don't. Kryn moves a little closer, while one hand comes up to rest on the wall behind me.
It's safe here.
What are you...
Come back. No one's paying attention.
Right. From what I can make out behind Kryn and past the blurred veil of the realms, passers-by are milling about, laughing, eating, and minding their own business. When I'm more than positive that no one is paying us any mind, I physically and mentally shift back. The world around me comes back into focus while the humidity in the air immediately greets me by accumulating on my skin and filling my lungs. Laughter and the smell of charred foods flood my senses, and I shiver from the overwhelming sensations.
Welcome back.
My focus slides to Kryn, and I find that even though I don't need him to block the view of me anymore, he still doesn't move from his spot in front of me. Thank you. Wait. Actually, Kryn, I wouldn't even need your help in the first place if you didn't go and aggravate that man.
If I didn't do that, then how would we have known if the blight in his soul was dangerous or not?
The blight was not even the size of a fist, which almost always goes away on its own. That is, until you made it grow stronger by purposefully bumping into him and almost knocking him down to the ground. I take a deep breath when I realize that I'm getting a little too worked up.
A Spirit Reaper's job is to clean up the blight inside souls, is it not? That's what we just did. So I don't understand why you're so upset.
I blink up at him a few times and realize that he genuinely doesn't understand why. That is our job, but we're also responsible for doing that without interfering with other beings as much as we can. That means sometimes assessing if we need to act, or if the threat seems inconsequential enough that we can just let it fade on its own.
So you'd rather risk letting some loose end go, hoping that it will resolve itself, rather than taking care of the matter right away just because it'll unsettle a few people.
He breaks eye contact for a moment and has a distant look on his features, as if he's referring to some past experience.
You're so silly sometimes, Royal. It's endearing. Then again,
Prince scans my face for something, then moves to stand beside me on the wall with his arms crossed. I decide not to take the bait by asking how I'm silly and change the topic. You do know that you'll get in trouble, right?
for what?
If the commander finds out that you used your powers on someone.
And who's gonna tell him? You, darling?
My answer is not immediate, and I chastise myself for that. If not me, then some other Reaper would.
Then I just have to make sure they don't get the chance to.
A dark shadow passes over his face, and he looks away. The gleam in his one dark eye reminds me exactly what he's capable of if he actually wanted to silence someone. But my intuition tells me that he's not being serious about this situation, right? Our eyes meet again, and the air about him shifts.
By asking them very kindly, of course.
I let out a sigh, whether out of relief or annoyance, or a bit of both.
And regarding that angry human, I didn't have to use any of my powers on him, actually.
Huh. Oh, so are you admitting to the fact that you're just naturally irritating to be around? A triumphant smile starts to form on my face, but falters once he flashes his fangs at me. He pushes off the wall and leans in, but I've no intention of backing away from the challenge he's imposing.
I know that's something you love about me, Royal.
Kryn practically purrs. Do not react. My left eye twitches, and my fingers start contorting so much that I feel power accumulating in my palms. Kryn chuckles, but takes one step back.
Nice to see you have your strength again.
I relax my hands and start to walk away from him before he can drag me into another undiscussed plan of his that drains my energy. I'm going to start looking for that corrupt spirit before it infects someone else, and I prefer to do that without disrupting the humans as much as possible. I give Crin a pointed look over my shoulder, eyeing him from head to toe. Just as I'm about to keep walking, I sense a glimpse of a darkness from him, even as he puts one hand over his chest and sends me a smile that makes my head buzz just the slightest bit.
I will try my best not to disappoint you too much, Lady Royal.
Wasn't that just so cool? We're back, if you couldn't tell. I hope you enjoyed my story, and didn't Jouska do such an amazing job? I had no doubts, but it's just still so cool every time I listen to this. This part of the story is just the intro, and at first I wanted to read just the second half of it for this video, because if I make this into a visual novel game, I didn't want to spoil the whole intro here. So at first that's what I wanted Jouska to read. But then later I was thinking that I could just read the whole intro because it would not only make more sense for the story, but also I would add game options that would influence the outcome of the story anyways, so I wouldn't spoil too much if I read the whole intro. Luckily, Jouska read all of Crin's lines anyways, so that was very kind of him, and that worked out for me in the end. I didn't think that I would have another person on my channel so soon, let alone having someone read my story with me. But if you never take a shot, then you'll never get it in the hoop. So I reached out, not getting my hopes up too much, because you should always have room for disappointment with anything, but this was a very nice and welcome surprise in my plans. So a big thank you to Jouska. I will leave his channel in the description, so please go check him out. If you couldn't tell by what you just listened to, he has a really amazing voice and range, and he's a really good actor, so go check him out if you want to listen to more of him. While I was recording and editing my own part, I was so worried my audio quality wouldn't match Jouska's, because I am not a professional, so I was really worried it wouldn't blend and sound immersive. My room is not sound treated at all. I need to get more furniture because it echoes if I talk too loud. So when I recorded my lines for this story, I threw a blanket over my head the whole time, just in case it helped a little. I don't know if it did, but I hope it did. My shoulders were so tired the first time, but then it became like my shoulder workout, and it doesn't hurt anymore. I'm really happy I got to do this though, and we'll see who else is a guest on here and what else I try in the future. I love writing, and having a reason to write helps motivate me to keep writing and to actually finish writing a story for once. Thank you again for listening to my story. Let's end our discussion today with a quick pick-me-up, if you can call it that. If you want a quick little way to feel better, it might not sound fun, but clean up your room or your space. It feels like a chore and you probably don't want to do it, but once you finish doing it, you'll feel better. Most likely. You not only have a cleaner, more organized space, but you also just did something that you didn't want to do, but it's something that benefits you in more ways than you think. Self-discipline isn't built overnight, and it requires effort and consistency, which can be difficult but not impossible. Okay? And while you clean, you can just listen to music or have a video on in the background, like I usually do, or have my videos on in the background, and it makes the process more enjoyable. And on that last note, thank you for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed my drawing in the background. I used pencils this time, mechanical pencils. I don't know if anyone will notice, but my eraser went flying like twice. I maybe got a little too upset when I was drawing sometimes at certain points. I'll also try to use other art supplies in the future besides just my pen or my markers. Okay, thank you for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed today's Draw With Me while I talk. And as usual, if you liked the video, please don't forget to hit the like button, and also don't forget to hit subscribe if you'd like to stick around. And good luck on whatever you're doing or whatever you have to do, and we will chat later. And see you next time. Bye bye.